Today was day 7 in Donna Adelson's trial, and it was a very interesting day. Some interesting testimony that we heard come from the witness stand, some of which, of course, we are going to play for you in today's video. Now, the reason why it was a very interesting day is that is the defense's first day for its presentation of evidence. Now, before it started, of course, it argued a motion for a directed verdict, which that's what we call in Michigan. Different jurisdictions call it different things, but it's all the same idea that after the prosecution finishes with its presentation of evidence, you make a motion with the court that even if you take all of the inferences in favor of the prosecutor, still a reasonable jury cannot come to the conclusion that your client committed this crime, and therefore the case should be dismissed. Now, 99.999% of these motions get denied, and that's exactly what happened in this case. So the defense did begin with its presentation of evidence. Now, who is the first witness that the defense is going to call? Are they going to call Donna Adelson, Charlie Adelson? Well, neither of them were called, and perhaps Donna Adelson will take the stand tomorrow. So we might hear from Donna Adelson tomorrow, which is why you should definitely join us right back here at Brother Counsel Studios for the live stream of day 8 in Donna Adelson's trial. Maybe we will hear from Donna herself. Maybe we'll even move on to closing arguments. So definitely not a day you're going to want to miss. We'll see you right back here, 8:45 tomorrow morning. Now, today in day 7, the first witness that was called was a very charming young woman named Anne Elizabeth Cunningham. Now, the first time that Anne Cunningham met the Adelsons was when she went on a trip to Miami with her partner, and they came down to Miami very late at night, and all the restaurants were closed except a Chinese place. So they got some Chinese. What's wrong with Chinese after all? Chinese is very good. So they were eating some Chinese, and her partner bit into his Chinese, and what do you know? He cracked a tooth. So they were trying to call some of their friends who would know a dentist that would help us out here. We're in a strange city, strange town, and we got some Chinese, but still, we need to fix this tooth. So they eventually found Harvey Adelson, and who was so nice that the next day, even though this was a holiday season, he opened up the office special and took care of Anne Cunningham's partner's cracked tooth. So that began the relationship between the Cunninghams, or Anne Cunningham, and Donna Adelson. So from her experience with Donna Adelson, Donna is not a hateful person. And in fact, she never ever said that she wanted to hurt Dan Markel. She would never ever do anything like that. Now, one of the conversations that they had was July 18th. This is a very important part. Okay, so July 18th, she testifies that Donna Adelson called her and spoke about Dan Markel, because Dan Markel, that was the day that he was murdered. That's the day that he was killed. And she called Anne, and she was crying. She was beside herself. She was very sad about what happened to Dan Markel. Definitely not something that she wanted to happen. Definitely not something that she orchestrated to happen or solicited to happen or conspired to happen. So get that out of your mind right now, jury. So this is what Anne testified to, that she was just so sad. Donna Adelson was so sad on July 18th when she called her and talked to her about Dan Markel being murdered. They also spoke after Charlie Adelson's verdict. So the verdict came in for Charlie Adelson, and Donna called her good friend Anne, and Anne said that she was very upset, as you can imagine, about the verdict, and she was also very concerned for Wendy and the boys' safety. And there was a point where Donna considered going to sleep, but that got out of her mind, and she decided that, you know what, she just needs to take a little break, a little vacation, a little breather, just get away from all the action here. Take a little breather in a nice, comforting location, a nice vacation spot like Vietnam. But of course, without a question, without a doubt, she was absolutely going to come back because she had a very important celebration that she wanted to be part of, which was the celebration of the bar mitzvah of her grandson, something that she would never miss, which was scheduled to happen in January. So she was absolutely going to come back for that. And this little trip to Vietnam was nothing more than a little breather that she can take and just get her bearings back together before she comes back to Florida. Okay, so that was Anne Cunningham's direct examination. Then on cross-examination, the first thing that Georgia brought out was the fact that you can't attend a bar mitzvah in the dress if you are going to be buried in that dress. Okay, so that was the first part she brought out. And also that they would obviously talk a lot about Dan Markel and the divorce. That was something that good friends talk about, and this would be no different. So since she's best friends with Donna Adelson, they would definitely vent to her about Dan Markel. But she does not recall any sort of bribe. the bribe of $1 million to get Dan Markel to relocate to Florida and then just Miami and then just travel to Tallahassee twice a week to teach. So she doesn't remember anything about that. And what was interesting is that she does actually recall them discussing this threat or this pretending to convert the kids to Christianity that they did actually speak about. And Donna said to her that this was brought up, but it was very foolish of me. I should have never said anything like that. Obviously, it was just the heat of the moment. I would never, ever even do anything like that as a joke. Now, another very interesting part that came out was the fact that if this is such a good friend, don't you think that Donna Adelson would have talked to Anne about being extorted? Don't you think that she would talk to her good friend about it? So she was asked on cross-examination, did Donna Adelson ever speak to you about being extorted? And the answer to this was yes, that she actually did speak to her about the extortion. And they were on some sort of trip to Japan, and that's when Donna Adelson spoke to her about it, but she doesn't remember really what time or what month or year this was. She just remembers that they were on a trip in Japan at some point, and that is when Donna told her about this extortion that was happening. And she said that she did watch the end of the trial of Charlie Adelson, and she was in communications with Donna at that point, and she showed them some text messages about it, and she did think that the jury got it wrong. She absolutely believes to this day, with all her heart and soul, that Charlie and Donna were extorted, and the jury just absolutely got it wrong in Charlie's case. Now, if this was the case, that really this was just a little vacation that Donna wanted to take to Vietnam, and she was absolutely going to come back for the bar mitzvah, but then why would she text something about that she has to make sure that she gets out in time? What are you getting out in time for? What does that mean, in time? In time for what? So that was brought out in a cross-examination. And okay. So that was essentially Anne Cunningham's testimony the first time she testified. And we're going to talk about how the second time she testified in the same day, how that happened. But first we heard from Ron Gutterson, who is Anne's life partner at this stage of their life. And he also just confirmed that this move to Vietnam was not a move. It was just a temporary little vacation that they needed to take to clear their heads. But of course, they were absolutely going to come back for the bar mitzvah. They would move heaven and earth to get back for that celebration. All right. Then we heard from Kelsey Gouet. Now, Kelsey Gouet was hired by Donna Adelson. She was the digital forensic expert. She was hired by Donna Adelson to look over the phone records. Now, there's really two parts to her testimony. The first part of her testimony was to talk about the frequency in which Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson spoke. Why is that? Well, anytime that you're trying to show a conspiracy, it's very helpful to show how frequent the contacts between these two people or three people or the co-conspirators are. After all, if they're committing something together, then there's going to be some frequent contacts, phone calls, text messages, whatever it is, between each other. So this is something that Sergeant Corbett brought out, showing the frequency of the phone calls between Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson and then Keenan McManus all around these few months that this conspiracy was occurring, this murder was happening. So what she was there to do was to show that some of the numbers were actually inflated. It's really not 417 phone calls. It's really 393 phone calls. It's not really 80 phone calls. It's really 69 phone calls. So she was kind of there to chip away at some of these numbers that Sergeant Corbett came up with and to show it wasn't as much as he's making them out to be. Now, really, on cross-examination came out that really, even though they were a little bit inflated numbers, well, still, they were still the most frequent contacts in their contacts. So it's not taking away the fact that they were still mostly in contact with each other more than anybody else throughout this time period. Now, it gets a little bit tricky because this is a family, and families sometimes talk to each other a lot. But when there's a spike and there's a lot more conversations happening now, according to within these past few months, then that would perhaps suggest that there was something more going on here than just how was your weekend. Okay, so that was one part of her testimony, and the other part of her testimony was really about the location data on July 18th. Now, the reason why this is very important, especially to the defense, is that one of the ways that the prosecution is showing that this was a conspiracy is that Donna Adelson stopped by, it seems, July 18th, that night, stopped by Charlie Adelson's house and dropped off some laundered cash, right? That's what the case of the prosecution is making. Now, what are they basing that on? Well, they're basing that on two main parts. Number one, aside from the wet money, but number one is that the fact that Donna Adelson texts Charlie Adelson when she's outside his house, outside your house, which would seem to suggest that she's outside her house, not just that she's driving 65 miles per hour on the expressway past his house and saying, hey, quickly, look out your window. We're passing by your house. But actually that she's outside his house and going to come in. In fact, Charlie responds, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Like something like, give me 10 minutes or something like that. And then he ends up being there in like 15, 20 minutes. But it seems like she's waiting for him, and then they may go in. So that is one part. And then the other part is that Sergeant Corbett showed is that the trip that Donna Adelson took, her phone is registering in one spot using certain cell towers at 8:30, let's call it. And then at another spot where she was, again, this is July 18th night, traveling up Florida north to Tallahassee, where they stopped overnight. And the next cell towers, which her phone picks up, is about 2 hours later, but it's only an hour drive. The estimated travel time is an hour drive, but it took them 2 hours to get there. So why? Well, obviously they made it stop somewhere. So that's one suggestion. The other suggestion is, well, maybe there's traffic or construction. That was one of the suggestions that the defense brought out, even though it's 8 o'clock at night, but it is Florida. Maybe there's traffic. And but the prosecution's case is obviously she stopped. She stopped by Charlie's house. That's what happened. Come on, make a reasonable inference, and that's what she did there. And she was dropping off this laundered cash. Okay, so those were the two parts. Now, what she was there to do, Kelsey Gouet, is that she was there to show and establish that there was no cell towers surrounding Charlie Adelson's house, which picked up Donna Adelson's phone, which seems to be a very big question in this case, no matter which way you go. By the way, both in the defense and the prosecution, this is a big question that doesn't really have a good answer. What's the defense's answer to this? I don't think they have an answer to this. But the question here is that Donna Adelson's phone, when she's outside Charlie Adelson's house, does not pick up any towers. There's no towers around cell towers around Charlie's home that picks up Donna Adelson's cell phone. Now, why is that? She's using it. It's on. She's texting him, I'm outside your house. But there's no towers picking her up. So what does that mean? So the defense believes that this helps their case. Because then, who says that she was there? I don't know. Maybe she was texting it from I don't know where, because there is data that she was before south of that and then later north of that. So, how did exactly she get there? Well, she took another route and no other towers picked her up. So it's not exactly clear what the defense's theory here is, just that she wasn't there. So that is, again, something that she wrote out that, look, that is what the data shows. The data shows that there were no cell towers that picked up her phone outside Charlie's house. That's it. Okay. So on cross-examination, there was a few points that were brought out. Number one is the fact that even, again, if you account for your new calculations and take off some of these phone calls, they are still the most frequent contacts in their phones that couple months. Okay, that's number one. Now, and also it got to this back and forth, which I have to play for you because this is something that I was literally jumping out of my seat with. I was jumping out of my seat by some of the questions here, and they were not objected to. So take a look, and here we go. They're talking again about the frequency of the phone calls, and this is Kelsey Gouet on the stand, and this is Sarah Dugan doing the cross-examination.
And your testimony was that for Donna Adelson's frequency analysis, just with Charlie Adelson, instead of 80 events, she actually had 69 when you take out the duplicates.
Connected and attempted.
Okay. What do you think that shows that's helpful to the defense in this case?
Okay. So if you missed the question, what do you think that's helpful? What do you think about this information is helpful to the defense? Okay. So she asked her again, the phone calls, instead of being 80 phone calls, she discovered that it was really only 69 phone calls. And then Sarah Dugan asks her, so what about that information do you think is helpful to the defense? Okay, this is an inappropriate question. Now, Sarah Dugan can ask inappropriate questions. That's part of the strategy sometimes as a lawyer. See what you can get away with. And in this case, she got away with it. You know why? Because there was no objection. There is so many reasons to object to this question that I don't know how you can be falling asleep. Even if you're asleep at the table, this should really, you should jump out of your seat. Why? Well, there's a few different reasons. Number one, it's irrelevant. Number two, there's no foundation. She doesn't have a foundation to talk about that. Number three, it calls for a legal conclusion. It's argumentative. It's invading the province of a jury. I mean, there's so many different objections that you can think of that you should be jumping out of your seat. You wouldn't even have to explain or elaborate on any of these objections, and the judge would immediately sustain it because it's such an obvious objection. You can just get up and say, objection, Your Honor, and you don't even have to explain to the judge. Say, of course, this is not an appropriate question, and he would not require the witness to answer. But if there's no objection here, then look what happens. The witness is just stuck there, and she's going to try to figure out a way to answer this question. Now, remember what happened in, let's say, the Karen Reed case, right? Just recently, we had Karen Reed. We had really polished experts who testified, and what they would explain on the stand, and this is something that a lot of experts will say, is that it doesn't really matter who hired me. It doesn't matter, if the defense hired me, the prosecution hired me. I'm not here to advocate for them. I'm just here to share with you what the science shows. If anybody, you both could have hired me, I would have said the same thing. This is what you say. I'm not here to help the defense. I'm just here to tell you what the data shows. I'm here to tell you what the science shows. That's all. And this is an expert witness. And she's obviously right. You're going to see she's uncomfortable answering this question because it's not a question that she should have to answer. But the defense were asleep at the table here.
I think it just goes to, when I look at records, I like to be precise with my numbers.
Okay. And when Sergeant Corbett testified, he did let the jury know that this contains duplicates, though, right? For the frequency report?
I think he said that it does include voicemail forwarding events.
This is also borderline objectionable, by the way. To ask one witness to give an opinion about another expert witness, that's also, borderline, which you can argue for. It's an objectionable.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say is he didn't say anything that was unreliable or inaccurate with that.
I think that being able to see exactly how many can be important.
Because it's 69 and not 80 when duplicates are taken out, does that mean that Charlie Adelson and Donna Adelson don't have a relationship?
No.
And you still agreed that Charlie Adelson is still Donna Adelson's most frequent contact, right?
For that time period.
When we looked at
right. So, okay, so she made her points again, but I shouldn't be so surprised because really the lack of objections in this case, and I know I don't love to make objections myself, but when you have something that's just like sticking out, it's glaring in your face like that, and so inappropriate, and you see how the witness is struggling to answer the question, you got to object. You just have to object in that case, even if you don't like objecting. So I was just a little surprised there. But again, like we did see in this trial, that there's not a lot of objections from the defense, which there could have been. Anyway, okay, let's move on. So the last part that they brought on in cross-examination is the fact of how much they're getting paid. So they're getting paid a lot of money. Just for the trial, they're getting paid $10,000. And that does not include all the work that she did going through all the data, which can easily be another $10,000. So what is she being paid for exactly? To say that some of the numbers are off, even though still the Donna and Charlie are the most frequent contacts. So like it was just a little bit of what are you even here for? Like you're getting paid all this money to just say that it's not, it's not 80 phone calls, it's 69, but still they're the most frequent contacts. Like, okay, fine. All right. Now, after that, she was also asked a question, actually before that, but she was also asked the question of if in the records it shows that on July 18th, Donna called Ann Cunningham, because it doesn't show that in the records. Now, remember, Ann Cunningham's testimony was that July 18th, Donna called her, and she was so upset, she was crying about what happened to Dan Markell. And in the records, there is no record of this phone call. So she brought this out. This is what the cross-examination they brought out with Kelsey Guay. So then what happened was they had to recall Annie Cunningham. So they recalled Ann Cunningham, and then she explained when she was presented with this problem, she said it must have been that it was a WhatsApp phone call or a Viber phone call. So it wasn't your standard phone call. It was through the WhatsApp app or the Viber app. Okay. So something actually what's interesting came out in cross-examination is that, WhatsApp didn't allow phone calls till 2015. And this phone call happened in 2014. So then Ann said, well, then I guess it must have been Viber. All right. So that's what she got out of that one. And that was probably a pretty close call for the defense right there. Okay. Then we heard from Richard Chagrin. So Richard is a friend of the Adelsons, And they had some sort of gourmet club together and some other friend activities that they used to do together. And he spoke to Donna the day after Charlie was convicted. And Donna was distraught. Harvey was in shock. And he is very computer savvy. He's very computer savvy. And he was going to help Donna with the tickets to Vietnam. And this is where probably the most important testimony for Donna Adelson of the day came out. So listen for yourself what he says happened with Vietnam. Here we go. Brace yourselves.
When you sat down to assist with the reservations, what did you discover?
The ironic thing was that the round trip was a fraction more than one way. And I suggested, since you don't know when you're coming back until sometime in January, book a one way. And I remember commenting to Harvey, I said, I'd be willing to bet it's cheaper to fly from Vietnam to the United States than it is from the United States to Vietnam.
So there is Richard saying in open court, under oath, that it was his suggestion that they book a one-way ticket to Vietnam. This was not Donna's idea. This wasn't Harvey's idea of them trying to escape on a one-way ticket. This was his idea. He suggested that, again, it didn't seem like he suggested Vietnam, but Donna suggested Vietnam, apparently. But he was the one that suggested, or maybe that's not so clear either, but he was the one that suggested the one-way ticket. That was very clear. It was him, and he was willing to bet that it's even cheaper because he looked at the prices, and it looks like it was going to be about the same price. And then why book a round-trip ticket if you can just book a one-way ticket, and then maybe whenever you decide to come back, you'll book a one-way ticket anyways. Probably cheaper one-way ticket from Vietnam to America than the America to Vietnam. So that was the bombshell of today. And I think it's pretty significant. I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, this is what he testified to. So, okay. But, some people have problems with thinking that it's going to be cheaper to book 2 one-way tickets. But, okay, that was his testimony. That's under oath. And that's what he said. And, of course, he said that he said that they were, of course, planning on coming back for the grandson's bar mitzvah. And he's a very frequent traveler. He's in over 75 countries, this Richard fellow. And he said that the way it works in Vietnam is that you only have either 30-day or 90-day visas. And therefore, they wanted the 90-day visa just so, they're not stuck there for 30 days. And the bar mitzvah anyway is going to be after 30 days. So may as well get the 90-day visa. Also, it happens to be that he thinks that Vietnam, first of all, the Adelsons did go to Vietnam before. That's what he testified to, that they've been to Vietnam before, and it's a very nice place. So apparently this should make it on your bucket list in case you're thinking about nice destinations to vacation. Vietnam should absolutely make it because it is found to be a great country, great people, and great food. So book your next ticket to Vietnam. All right. And enjoy. Let me know how it goes. All right. So there you have his testimony. And he said that Harvey was one who actually booked the flights. It wasn't even Donna who booked the one-way tickets. And when he was asked about how involved Donna was with the children, he said, yes, Donna is a very involved mother and grandmother of her children. Okay. Now, on cross-examination, Georgia brought out the fact that he was asked in his deposition. They actually took his deposition before this trial. And he was asked if he made any decisions about the traveling, and he said that no, he was just there for a conduit for the technology. And today, you just told us for the first time that you're suggesting Vietnam. How can it be in the deposition when we asked you this basically same idea? You said no, you had nothing to do with it, and now you're saying that you actually suggested Vietnam. And he said, well, I didn't make the decision basically, but it's still, I'm just suggesting it. I mean, that's part of being the conduit, I guess. That's what his explanation was. Okay. And then one last question that Georgia asked him. You're just saying that she's a typical Jewish grandmother. Well, do typical Jewish grandmothers dress up their kids in Nazi uniforms or even suggest that idea? Okay, so that was the last question, and then they moved on. So then we heard from Tarana Khan, who is a private investigator that was hired by Donna Adelson, and she essentially met with Patricia Bird, as we heard from from day 6, Patricia Byrd was one of the jailhouse snitches who said that Donna Adelson basically admitted everything to her and promised her veneers and a land with trailer and was promising all these good stuff if she would only say that Katie McBanimal was the one who was orchestrating this whole extortion and that Katie told her everything, that this was all one big extortion, and really the Adelsons had no clue and nothing to do with the murder of Dan Markel. And here, the private investigator said that she met with Patricia Byrd, and she never told her anything like that. Patricia Byrd never said to her that Donna Adelson admitted to these crimes or offered to give her any of those things, not even the veneers part. That wasn't true. And that is what the private investigator said, that Patricia Byrd never said anything like that. Okay. Now, the only point that they brought on cross-examination is that you did not record this interview. We have no idea if what you're telling us is the truth because you didn't record it. This is just your notes. And she said, yes, I was asked not to record it, so I didn't record it. Okay. Then we had, but she wrote everything down. Then we had another private investigator, Eddie Varnes, who also had to do with Patricia Byrd. And he also said the same thing. He said that Patricia Byrd, when he met with Patricia Byrd actually told her that when she was locked up with Katie McBanimal, Katie told her that this was all one big extortion plot. That's what she told her. That's what she told Eddie, the private investigator. And she didn't say a word about Donna Adelson telling her that she's going to buy her land or any of these bribes, essentially. And didn't say that Donna Adelson confessed to her either. So here you have another private investigator who's talking to Patricia Byrd and discrediting Patricia Byrd. In fact, even saying that Patricia Byrd was telling her that Kate McBanimal was behind this extortion. Okay, but then again, was instructed not to record the interview for whatever reason. And yeah, okay, so that's what happened there. Then finally, we had also Tim Kelly. Tim Kelly was a realtor. And he was a realtor where Dan Markel requested to look at certain houses with him for his in-laws, the Adelsons, and he showed some houses to the Adelsons in Tallahassee. Okay, and Donna Adelson was there. However, the cross-examination revealed that this interaction happened a year before the divorce. So this is way before anything was actually going on with with Wendy and Dan. Okay, then we had Joshua Turner. And basically, Joshua Turner was there to show the video of Drina. Now, Drina was the other jailhouse snitch, and Drina Bernhardt went to go on video with Donna Adelson when they were writing the script. You'll remember the script that we spoke about in day 6, where it seems that Donna Adelson wrote this script about the questions and answers, what Drina should tell, she should testify to, about also the same idea that Katie McBanimal told her everything and told her about this whole extortion and really had nothing to do with the Adelsons' plan. And it was just Katie extorting and her boyfriend, Sigfredo Garcia, extorting the Adelsons by killing their son-in-law first and then threatening they're going to kill more of them. So we had Drina showing a lot of the video showing that she was interacting with Donna Adelson. They were showing a lot of that video. I mean, they're just showing a lot of video that they were interacting with each other and they were writing. She was writing, Drina was writing, and Donna was writing, even though we know that the writing was Donna because we had a handwriting expert show us that the writing was Donna. So a lot of people were left scratching their heads about what exactly was going on. I think that the defense was trying to show that maybe Drina this is all one big game and really she was leading Donna on to do this. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure, but to show that she was just not an innocent person or she was doing this for her own benefit. I don't know, something along those lines must have been the strategy there because, I mean, again, maybe the suggestion is that Drina told Donna to write this. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure myself, but that was the extent of the testimony today. That was day 7. And tomorrow we're going to start with day 8, which should be, again, a very interesting day, not a day that you're going to want to miss. So join us tomorrow again, right here, 8:45 a.m. for the continued trial of Donna Adelson. Maybe we'll hear Donna take the stand. Maybe we'll see her take the stand, and maybe we'll even move to closing arguments. So that's going to be it for today. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and like, and we will see you next time.